you may begin.
In 1776, the founding fathers of the United States wrote the Constitution, in which the First Amendment states that Congress shall pass no law or ruling respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or the freedom of the press or the right of the people to peaceably assemble and to petition the government. Now fast forward to August 2016. Colin Kaepernick, who is the former quarterback of the San Francisco 49ers, had begun kneeling to protest the anthem, stating that I cannot stand for a country that oppresses its citizens of color. For making this stand, no pun intended, he and others, such as Eric Reed, Brandon Marshall, and LaShawn McCoy, have become vilified by a large part of the nation, simply because of the fact that some are unable to look beyond their own views to realize that just because they disagree with the players, it doesn't mean the players are wrong. I aim to help end this aggression towards them by spreading knowledge of what led up to this, why they're kneeling, and what you can do, which is mainly to become more informed and to help lessen the hate that is unrighteously directed towards these American citizens. In a poll directed by Jennifer Agiesta, who is the polling director at CNN, she uses it to tally American feelings about how they feel about the protests. 49% of people who took the test said that they are all right with NFL players kneeling, and in this area, 82% of African Americans said they agreed with it, and 72% of Democrats agreed with it. So if the nation is so evenly divided, just why is there so much hate, and why are these players kneeling anyway? Well, we'll start with the man who started it all, Colin Kaepernick. Colin Kaepernick, first of all, grew up in a family of military parents. Both of them were in the military. He said he cannot stand for a country that is against or oppresses its citizens of color. Not that he was against the military, not that he was against the anthem. He said that he was for equality. Why the players are kneeling? Many of them have stated that it doesn't have anything to do with the military or the veterans or the anthem or even the NFL. It has to do with protesting social injustices that have been going on within the United States for many years. Many of them are to support minority groups and the youth of America. I will now explain some of the arguments that have been brought against the players and their protests. There are many people against the protest of the national anthem, and many of them are for similar reasons. The main one that you hear is that it's disrespectful. My first point is that kneeling is not disrespectful, because in a way, no. If kneeling was so disrespectful, then how come when you walk into a Catholic church, you see many people kneeling to pray? And the second main point is that it's against the anthem. And many players have repeatedly stated that the anthem is not the focus of the protests. And many of the players cannot be against the anthem simply for the fact that many of them have grown up in military families themselves. And the last main point is that it's against the veterans. And it's again, veterans are not the focus of the protests. It's the social injustices. And if you want to look more into this, you can look up hashtag Veterans for Colin Kaepernick on Twitter, in which many veterans agree with Colin Kaepernick, and many of them state that they fight for the rights that the NFL players are using in their protests. Many of these players have been insulted, including by one Donald Trump, who called them sons of, insert your own word here, and he suggested firing them for what they were doing. So, in a quote by Sally Hawkins, who is an American sports columnist and a Stanford graduate, she says what she sees it as is basically Donald Trump and Mike Pence telling NFL players to shut up and stand. And in a quote from Alex Altman, who is the correspondent for Time magazine, he says, "It's amazing to see a U.S. president dedicate so much energy attacking athletes for peaceably exercising their First Amendment rights." I believe that the resolution to this is to give the protests the attention that they deserve, not to take the focus off of them and give it to Trump or veterans or not the athletes themselves, but to actually focus on what they're saying instead of just so quickly going to hate. And I have a video to show. And in the video, you'll see Nate Boyer, who is a former U.S. veteran, being interviewed by ESPN.
FN, F8, hold them both down, and then it'll say duplicate. Need help? Okay, no, it's fine. It's fine. Sorry, Mom. It's okay.
Than you think are wrong.
What was your initial response when you saw that Colin Kaepernick sat for the national anthem?
I'll be completely honest, my initial response was anger, you know? I was angry and disappointed because I grew up a Niner fan and I was pulling for this guy. Now he just pissed on my flag. But then I just stopped making all these judgments and tried to listen to what he's talking about.
Specifically, is police brutality.
And the more I thought about it, the more I was like, I want to try to understand where he's coming from, at least somewhat, because I haven't walked around in his shoes, but he hasn't walked around in my boots. You know what I mean? So I just wrote a letter, and he got a hold of it.
He contacted you?
Yeah, he contacted me. He said he was inspired by it, and he was wanting to sit down with me, you know, just have a discussion. First thing he said when we met was, hey, I just want you to know I appreciate your service more than anything. I expressed to him, maybe there's a different way to demonstrate where you're showing more respect for those that lay down their lives for what that flag and anthem stands for. I suggested, you know, kneeling, because people kneel to pray. You know, we'll kneel in front of a fallen brother's grave, you know, to show respect. He said, I think that would be really powerful.
Colin Kaepernick choosing not to sit on the bench this time, but to take a knee.
The fact that he was willing to listen and go to a knee versus sitting, I thought was huge. That's an important step that he's taken. I think other people need to take a step too and maybe listen to him.
Cops are getting paid leave for killing people and not being held accountable. That's not right.
I respect those men and women in uniform, but the ones that aren't doing it the right way, we need to correct it. We need to fix it. He's right about that.
People of color have been targeted by police.
It is an issue, and we've come a long way. We still have a long way to go.
I think as a service member, it's more upsetting for me to come back from fighting for my country overseas to see how divided we are and how angry we are at each other.
Wouldn't you love to see one of these NFL owners say, get that son of a chocolate field?
I'm more hurt by that than somebody sitting down during the anthem.
At this point, I'm just like, Mr. President, let's be presidential now and reach across to people that you don't agree with and you think are wrong and just say, you know what, let me hear you out.
If we have these real conversations that are uncomfortable for a lot of people, it's something that can unify this country.
And maybe we can come to some kind of agreement, solution, and understand that we're really not that different. We probably want the same things at the end of the day.
Hallelujah.
And so I leave you with this quote. How can America be called the land of the free if all of its citizens are pressured to stand for the brave? Thank you.
Okay, all right, thank you very much. Is there a round of applause? Oh, wait, stay there.
Have I ever seen our president cuss? I mean, that's a bit of a shock.
Okay, let's go ahead and ask questions of Chris when you are ready, if you have any. Got one there, I think.
So, the NFL players, like, they are protesting and saying for what they're doing, like, what they believe is right, but they're doing it during, like, their job. So, do you think there are other ways besides doing it, like, in the middle of their job that could help and still be effective?
Many of them, such as Colin Kaepernick, who no longer has the opportunity to kneel on the sideline, he is still a social activist in the community, and he has gone to Africa and helped people over there, and he's been active in the communities in America as well.
So, I heard a lot about the main issue being, like, say, police brutality, but most of the police generally are not going to be that represents a very small minority of the police. So why make a statement against the nation when only a few cops are the problem? Could there be a better way of protesting?
I believe when you say most, it should be none, because the motto of the police is protect and serve, not sometimes protect and serve. But there probably could be better ways, or less angering ways maybe, but I'd have to look more into that.
Do you think the media is to blame in any of this, making any of the stories a little bit more outrageous maybe than they were, or maybe not showing both sides of the story? What's your perspective of media and its
For
involvement?
sure, media can be both a positive and negative thing. In this case, like, such as videos, you only see them from one perspective, or stories can be only told from one perspective, and they can be slanted, so.
Do you think they should still like put their hand over their heart even if they're kneeling? Or do you think it doesn't?
That could be a solution, but I suppose they could, not.
One more?
Do you think maybe the reason this got blown out of proportion is because Donald Trump is trying to like hide something that he's doing?
Well, it was already kind of a big deal before it got to Trump, but the fact that he basically insulted their character by calling them that and suggested them be fired is what really brought him hugely into the whole deal. So.
Okay, let's give him a round of applause. Thank you, Chris.